Todd Lantier. I am the chairman of the board of the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce. Trey Benton here is the editor of the Brookhaven Post. He is going to be, the Chamber of Commerce and the Brookhaven Post are promoting this forum for you and putting this on. We are in the process of scheduling the next debate. It's going to be a true debate at the end of October. It's either going to be on the 23rd or the 30th. Watch on the post. We'll post it on the post and make sure that you know that, okay? But there will be a follow-up to tonight's meeting. So if we don't get a chance to get to all the questions tonight, we will have an opportunity to address them in a month's time or so. So why don't you guys come on up and I'll continue to explain. Come on, guys, don't be shy. I'll continue to explain you guys want to applaud? Woo, here they are. Woo. We're going to refer to them by, we're going to give them a number. That's irrelevant. We don't need to do that. What we're going to do tonight is, have a seat, guys, if you would. Instead of this being a debate where people will ask questions and all four candidates will pose their positions, pro or con, for that, I would like for tonight to be more of a let's get to know these guys, okay? So the time that we have a hard stop at 9, okay? So if you have a question that you feel like you have to ask, you're going to have to wait because at 9 o'clock we're done, all right? So there's really no space for a lot of peripheral discussion. We're going to ask these gentlemen to stand up and take 10 minutes, give us their background, tell us what they're all about, talk about their families if they'd like to, their background, their education, their experience, what they think makes them a good candidate, what they love about Brookhaven, whatever it is that they want you to know, the voting public. Everyone's going to have 10 minutes. Then we are going to ask them some questions. The microphone's in and out, so bear with me. Thank you, Trey. Is that better? For audio? Oh, is that what it is? No. I'm getting coached by my AV person here. Then we're going to ask these gentlemen some questions. Some of these questions that have been submitted, folks, I have to be candid. All these questions have already been asked and answered by these candidates on the Brookhaven Post, okay? Anybody want to talk about the pink pony tonight? They've already answered that question on the Brookhaven Post. Pardon? It was erased? No. Brookhavenpost.com, there are questions about the pink pony. There are questions about the redevelopment powers, how would they feel about that? So any of those questions that have been submitted in this bowl, we may not get to them because they've already been asked and answered. So I would invite you to go there and get educated. All right? So we'll just go in order. So first I'll introduce everyone so everyone knows who these are. We have Mr. Park, we have Mr. Brown, we have Mr. Nama, and we have Mr. Barry. Okay? So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Park, give him 10 minutes to introduce himself. Want to introduce Casey Dudek in the red shirt. Casey, he's going to be our timekeeper. He's the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. You have your sign that we worked so hard on, Casey, with the numbers. Time, 3 minutes to go, 1 minute to go. Okay, guys? So we worked hard on that. We want to thank Dr. McMillan for helping us organize this in the school, which I think is awesome. So when you see her, please thank her. I want to thank David for providing security tonight from Brookhaven's finest. So if you guys should feel good and safe. Thank you. Awesome round of applause. They love you. They love you. One of the questions already is this my real hair color? And the answer is yes. So some of them are silly. All right, so we're going to hand it over to you, John. You got 10 minutes. Casey's going to let you know, starting now.
Hi. This is my first time, so take it easy on me. My name is John Park. 34 years ago, as a result of a coup d'etat in South Korea, my family moved to America. We landed in Auburn, Alabama, and I learned a little bit about American culture, Southern hospitality, and of course, football, or Eagleton. And then in 1984, our family moved to Decatur, Georgia, where I spent the rest of my childhood. I attended Decatur High School, where I played soccer and basketball. After high school, I attended Emory University, where initially I was a history major, and then later I decided to go over to the business school, undergraduate business school, where I acquired a BBA with a concentration in finance. After I left Emory University, I started my consulting career. I worked at IBM and then at Computer Sciences Corporation, where I worked with teams that did internet strategy consulting and also corporate assessments. I worked at corporations such as Saks Fifth Avenue, BB&T, and Aeroshirts. During that time, where we had to navigate various political situations, I did learn a little bit about politics. And then 9/11 happened, and the CDC hired a lot of consultants to implement the National Electronic Disease Surveillance System. I was on a team that was sent to work on a partnership between the federal government and various state departments of health to have notifiable diseases reported to the CDC in order to combat bioterrorism. After a few years of that, my wife over there and actually at the time, my fiance, was transferred from Washington, D.C. to Paris, France, at their Paris office. And we made the decision that we would go ahead and get married, hop a plane and go over there and live in France for 2 years. There, I ate a lot of cheese, learned some French, and continued to do a little consulting. And I developed a deep appreciation for other cultures. But I also missed America a lot, because I think I've definitely become American. Upon returning, I came back to the CDC and worked on the Biosense project, which was a project to connect with 1,100 hospitals, receiving 400,000 notifiable messages directly from the hospitals within a 2-hour window. We worked really hard on that project. And then in 2007, after jumping around Dunwoody and also Midtown, we decided to settle down, and we chose Brookhaven. And we chose Brookhaven for the same reasons that you did. Great location, beautiful parks, great schools, and really, really friendly neighbors. Once settled in and we got into our house, and we love our house, we decided to adopt a dog, and we went to the DeKalb County Animal Shelter. We love our dog, but we realized that 80% of the dogs in DeKalb County Animal Shelters don't make it out. So I joined an organization called the Friends of DeKalb Animals. What they do is they pull dogs from high-kill shelters, vet them, get them healthy, get them socialized, and then ship them to shelters up north, where there's a shortage of adoptable pets. I'm proud to be associated with this organization, and they do a lot of great work. I also started playing soccer again. I founded a recreational team, which then in turn became a 3-team club in the ADASL, which is the most competitive amateur league in the state of Georgia. And I was very proud that we were able to recruit new players and meet new people, have lots of great times, and win some soccer games. So it's one of my passions. As a result of one of my passions, my friends and I, who had also gone to the World Cup with me back in 2002, they came home with me to Korea. We wanted to bring that experience to Atlanta. And we also chose Brookhaven again to host Soccer Fest. So 3 of my soccer friends, one of which is actually a cancer survivor, and he started an organization called Keep Kickin' for blood cancer research and outreach. We raised money for that. So we decided to do Soccer Fest. We went out and found some sponsors, found some volunteers. I don't know if Pam Irvin was here in the neighborhood, but she was a huge volunteer for that. And we'll also work with the city to put on Soccer Fest. As many of you may know, it was a huge success. We had 15,000 people in the largest World Cup watch party in the Southeast. And we raised $35,000 for Keep Kickin' and blood cancer research. One of the things that you don't know about is that basically during Soccer Fest, there was talk of shutting it down because it was getting too crowded. I was very impressed with the Brookhaven police force who came in, and actually instead of shutting it down, they brought in more officers, off-duty officers from throughout the city to manage the situation. And it was just a group of people, volunteers, coordinators, and the visitors and police working together to make a really great event happen. During my time at Soccer Fest, there were some disappointments in terms of the parks. I almost flipped my ATV over a couple of times because I was carrying kegs of beer and ice, and some of the pads were pretty worn out. But I also saw it as a great opportunity. There's so many great parks in the city of Brookhaven that could use so much more, and so I decided to get involved. I want to engage the doers in the community, the people that want to go out and make things happen. For example, Bob Sorrentino, who works for Quikrete, was able to acquire sand at cost. I worked with Kathy Coy, who had been working with the city before with the Georgian Hills Revitalization Project, and we also rounded us some volunteers and created a new sand pit. That is just an example of how a public-private partnership on a small scale, and also on a big scale like Soccerfest, can do amazing things for the city. And those are the kinds of things that I want to do once, if elected. Because I work in technology, and the best project managers are those that set a direction and then remove obstacles. And I think that is the direction that we as a city need to go to. Over the years, I've fallen in love with this country, and I've fallen in love with this neighborhood. To do great things, and there's a potential for a truly great, livable Brookhaven. All it takes is a little organization, some teamwork, and sweat. You serve those you love. This is why I'm running. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, John. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize one of our elected officials, Mr. Tom Hogan, who is city councilman in Chamblee, and thank you for coming, gentlemen. Thank you for your service. Mr. Brown, if you would let everyone know everything there is to know about you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Good. You need a microphone? Can you hear me in the back without the mic? Oh, you need the mic. Okay. All right. First, I would like to thank everybody for showing up tonight, taking the time. We appreciate your time. On behalf of the other candidates and myself, it's valuable time, and we want to thank you for that. And thank you to the Chamber for facilitating this for us. I'll give you a couple of reasons why I'm running. My name is Bill Brown. I own and operate a little gastropub over in town, Brookhaven, called There. Take my glasses off. I've been a resident here in Brookhaven for about 17 years, and I have fallen in love with this community, the charm, the beauty of it, the natural canopies on the streets. I think it's a terrible thing that the streets are being clear-cut by the Georgia Power. We need to put that to an end right away. I attended Southern Vermont College in Bennington, Vermont. I earned an AA degree in humanities and then transferred to St. Leo College in Florida, where I earned dual baccalaureate degrees, one in finance and one in psychology. I audited classes at Princeton University and attended grad school at NYU in New York City. I moved from a little town called Rumson, New Jersey to Manhattan. I worked for 16 years on the Florida New York Stock Exchange as a specialist. I left the Florida Exchange to take over distribution for a major money management firm, which required a lot of traveling, extensive border-to-border, coast-to-coast traveling. And as a result, that's how I ended up locating here to Atlanta. We looked around, looked at a lot of communities, and Brookhaven was the one that struck us, and we've been here ever since. During my time in Manhattan, I worked with various volunteer organizations. One of them was Covenant House. And one of the things we were able to do with Covenant House is we were able to create some satellite Covenant houses around the country. We put one up in South Florida. And that was, the Covenant House is an organization that helps runaways. We bring them in and we try to get their lives back on track. And I'd worked with them for many years. And another group I worked with was the Central Park Conservancy in Manhattan. That was a group that we were out there, we were raising money and we were preserving the parks. It wasn't just Central Park, but it was all the parks in New York City. And I'd like to see the city council here spearhead an operation and create a conservancy for our parks. Brookhaven has some beautiful parks, and I think that if we got the public a little bit more involved, we'd be able to create a conservancy, raise some monies, and do the things that we want for these parks, to preserve the green spaces, keep it wide open for everybody. One of the other things I'd like to see, and I realize that the Chamber has now started one, is I'd like to create an economic development council for Brookhaven. business gets business, and I believe that the small businesses are the backbone of America. We have big boxes here. Big boxes are fine, but it's the small businesses that are woven into the fabric of Brookhaven. You take a look at what we have here, all the shops up and down Dresden, the general hardware store, the independent boutiques now over in town Brookhaven. We are Brookhaven, and I think we need to try to attract more small to mid-sized businesses to Brookhaven. Business gets business. We bring people into town, we create new opportunities, new jobs, and I am very much pro-commerce. I find it sad that the city has so far spent in excess of $300,000 in legal fees to try to close a local business down. I'm not pro-pony, I'm not anti-pony, but I am pro-commerce. And they have been a good neighbor. There has been a lot of problems, and they generate $500,000 or more of income for the city. I think we need to find a middle ground and put this to rest and move on and work about developing our town to the beauty that it's going to have. Also, as a business owner, I am very disturbed about the potential redevelopment referendum. I don't think that we need that. Right now, we are in the hottest zip code in the state, 30319. All the news medias have done, about the real estate here. The development and redevelopment is occurring, and it's occurring organically. It's occurring naturally. I think it would be irresponsible for us to create tax allocation districts because it's happening. We don't need to potentially move money away from our education here. And that's what could possibly happen if we create these tax allocation districts. It's bad for Brookhaven. It's bad for business all the way around. What we have also, if you took the time to read the referendum, there's in there where they want to allocate and issue some tax allocation bonds. That's fine. Bonds are okay. They're good. They raise some money. But however, they want to make these bonds exempt from the overall debt of the city, which I think is fiscal irresponsibility. Right now, all we have to do is take a look at some of the, there's been over 300 municipal failures in the last 20 years, and a lot of it had to do with debentures and bonds that were failed. Look at Orange County, California, 1994. They issued their tax, they created tax allocation districts around San Diego to hasten development that was already occurring. The economy slowed down in 1994, and as the rippling effect, it actually stalled the real estate market. It didn't set it back, but it stalled it. It stalled it for 7 months, and in that 7 months, Orange County, California could not make their debt payments on these bonds, and they defaulted. It cost them hundreds of millions of dollars and almost 9 years to correct that situation. So I think that that's one of the things that we really need to get out there. Win, lose, or draw any one of these candidates, but we as a community have to vote this referendum down. And eminent domain, If I'm elected, eminent domain is not going to happen on my watch. Things are moving along. I don't see any reason why city council needs to take away somebody's property and give it to somebody else. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Nama?
Thank you very much, Todd. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and taking time away from your busy schedules. Instead of going in and taking my entire 10 minutes, I'm more interested in getting questions from the audience. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. What I would like to talk with you about is what I think the 3 qualities you should be looking for in the city council member that you elect. Those 3 qualities are history, community involvement, and experience. A little bit about my history. I grew up in Brookhaven. I was born and raised here. When my parents bought their house on West Nancy Creek Drive back in 1969, 285 wasn't finished yet. I remember as a kid riding in the back of the station wagon without a seatbelt on past Perimeter Mall, and tiny little Perimeter Mall was surrounded by nothing but farmland. I've lived in this community for 42 years. I want to make this great. My wife and I are now raising our family here. My oldest son just started kindergarten here at Ashford Park this year. His 2 sisters aren't far behind him. We're raising our family here. We're fully invested in Brookhaven. I want to make Brookhaven great for all of us because I intend to live here for the rest of my life. As, as far as the community involvement aspect goes, I've been involved in helping out this area since long before Brookhaven was incorporated or there was a vacancy on our council. You know, for the past 10 years, I've participated in park cleanups at every one of the parks in our districts. I've been a medallion sponsor of the Brookhaven Bolt every year since its inception in 2008. I just yesterday helped finish up the presentation area at the amphitheater here at the school. You know, the project I'm probably the most proud of is the outdoor science classroom here at Ashford Park. Back in 2006, during a really hot time in the economy, the presidents of the PTA at the time came to me and asked me if I would be willing to put this in. And I said, sure. They said, as soon as we get a permit, we'll come back to you and we'll get started on it. 2 years later, we're in the midst of the deepest building recession that has ever happened in my career. They called me up and said, hey, we got our permit. When can you start? You know, I dug in. I did a good bit of the work myself by hand, donated the money I had, and got this done because I committed to it. I've got deep ties and deep roots in the community, and I want to make Brookhaven great so we leave something for our children and the future residents. The last aspect and most important attribute that you should be looking for in a city council member is experience. I was involved in the incorporation effort for Brookhaven. I was a board member of Citizens for North DeKalb, and I volunteered for Brookhaven Yes during that movement. Despite all the missteps that have occurred to date, I still think we're in a better place now than we were 2 years ago. There were promises made of local control of police, parks, and planning. And I think the current council has strayed away from some of those original goals, and I want to help get them back on the right track. I think we need to start focusing on perfecting those three services before we start branching out and asking for redevelopment powers or, you know, creating lawsuits against neighboring cities or long-standing businesses that have been around long before Brookhaven was incorporated. You know, another item that's very important to me is, you know, not only when we lost our previous council representative, you know, did we lose representation for our district, but we lost the one true expert in planning and zoning matters that was on the council. Right now, we do not have that on any of our present council members. I have an intimate knowledge of how planning and zoning work that none of my opponents do have. I've done this my entire life. I understand the things that are necessary to protect our neighborhoods and preserve the character of them, and I want to strengthen our ordinances to preserve it for a long time. I have concrete examples of things that I want to add to our ordinances and strengthen them that, as a home builder, I want to see tighter regulation on the home building industry. And I have no issue saying that out loud. I've said that to many builders during my campaign, and they agree with me. You know, we need someone with experience, because if we have an entire council that doesn't understand planning and zoning, then you end up with an extremely pliable council that's susceptible to staff recommendations and overzealous attorneys. You know, so I think experience is one of the keys. So I appreciate your time. I'm really excited about the Q&A that's coming up, and I think I truly am the most qualified candidate here, and I'm asking for your vote because of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nama. Mr. Barry?
Thank you, Todd. I would like to thank Todd and Trey and the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce for putting this on today. Thank you all for coming out here today. I think it's a good opportunity for you all to kind of interact with us, get to know what we stand for. All neighbors here, I think we all kind of see things similarly. However, this is a good kind of opportunity to see the nuances in our opinions and our positions. A little bit about me. My name is Charlie Berry. I was born in New York, moved down here when I was 6 years old. I've been living here ever since in the Atlanta metro area. Went to University of Alabama. I know Tim went to Auburn. And then went to law school here, John Marsh Law School down the road in Midtown. Got a law degree. Now I practice law here in Buckhead. I live in Brookhaven. I live on Dresden Drive with my wife and son, Jack. My wife is here tonight. I feel I'm uniquely qualified for this position because for two reasons. One, what I do every day as an attorney is I listen to my client. I have to understand my client. I have to then analyze his or her issue, and then I have to advocate on their behalf to help them solve their problem. I think that's what a good city council member does as well. They have to understand the residents of the community. They have to understand the issues that are presented to them, whatever they may be, for the time and place that they are on the city council. And then they have to advocate for the city, and mostly their district, and represent them appropriately. And I find I'm uniquely qualified because I do that every day. I also find that I'm uniquely qualified for this is because of my legal education. The government is very, it's very law intensive. One of the things that you do on city council is that you read, interpret, analyze, and vote on and make law. And I feel my training kind of puts me in an advantageous position to kind of be able to do that in an effective, efficient manner and understand all the kind of ins and outs. I have kind of a 4 points I'd like to make, and I like to begin that with a quote. And the quote is, "Be brilliant at the basics." And I'm not exactly sure who said that quote. I think it's Vince Lombardi. It could be Nick Saban, but I think it may be Vince Lombardi. But what he means is just be fantastic at the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals, be the best at that, and that will carry you to be the championship team, the championship city that you want to be. Those 4 kind of fundamentals of any kind of local government, I feel, are parks, police, public works, and planning and development. As far as parks, I think we're all kind of in agreement that the parks need work. For me, as a forefront issue, I think the safety and maintenance of the parks need work. I live down the street from Skyland Park, and I'll use that as an example. I found a electrical outlet that was open. You plug in like you'd plug in your toaster. It was open. A young child could stick their hand in there and get seriously injured. That's dangerous for everybody here. And it's also a liability for the city. If something were to happen, the city could get sued. That's a problem, and those are kind of fundamental things that need to be solved in the parks, as well as the aesthetic issues, like the tennis courts that have cracks in them and there's grass growing up through them, and the playground equipment that needs to be repaired, and the benches and things of that nature that need kind of a facelift. That's something that we'll focus on. Now, the parks plan passed on September 9th, just a couple days ago. That was the first step. That was a roadmap, basically, on what we're going to be doing with our parks. Whoever gets elected is going to have the responsibility to ensure that that plan gets enacted properly, that the money is allocated properly in the correct areas, and the vision that we have for the parks, the 5 parks that we have in District 5, the 5 parks we have in District 2, becomes a reality. As far as the second fundamental of, I think, local government is the police and safety. I think Chief Yandura and the Brookhaven Police Department are exceeding expectations in that matter. I think most people think that you can't drive from one part of Brookhaven to the other without seeing at least 2 Brookhaven police cruisers. I think the key to focusing on that issue would be to keep them, ensure that they have the resources they need to keep us safe. I went to the police night out a couple months ago, and that was a good opportunity to kind of see the resources that they have. They have up-to-date police cruisers. They have up-to-date electronics in their police cruisers. They have bulletproof vests and, very cool-looking attack dogs. They're like drug dogs. They're amazing. They're very awesome. They did like a display where the guy would run and then the dog would chase him down and get him. And we also have a mobile crime lab. I don't know if y'all knew that, but that's kind of reassuring that we have a mobile crime lab like CSI in the city of Brookhaven. So just ensuring that they have the resources to keep those kind of things happening, and so they can be safe while they're keeping us safe. Public works is another fundamental, and to me that is infrastructure. That's roads, that's sidewalks, That's even getting into trying to, help with traffic issues and quell traffic. While I feel the city is doing some things in that area, I feel a lot of that is being done outside of the district. I live on Dresden. It's not in the best shape. I know that they did some construction to take the dip out of the road, but the sidewalks going down still need help. And then there's other traffic bottlenecks that occur on Beaufort Highway, Peachtree, and then down at the other side of Dresden that need to be addressed. And that will give us an opportunity, if elected as city council, be able to work with the departments, the Public Works Department, to address the issues of alternate transportation methods, bike paths, walkability, and smart growth. And then the fourth fundamental is planning and development. And this kind of ties in nicely with the Public Works. It actually kind of ties everything in a little nicely, because the Comprehensive Plan 2034 has recently been transmitted to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. That addresses the parks and land use, and as well as transportation. It's not the final plan, but similar to the parks plan, whoever gets elected is going to have the responsibility to make sure that that gets enacted, or that is put together in the way that the residents of District 2 and Brookhaven want to see it put together. The term smart growth, I think, is a little intuitive. However, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and the definition of smart growth on Wikipedia is smart growth in an urban planning and transportation theory that concentrates growth in compact, walkable urban centers to avoid sprawl. It also advocates compact, transit-oriented, walkable, bike-friendly land use, including neighborhood schools, complete streets, and mixed-use developments with a range of housing choices. If elected, I would seek to understand more clearly how the residents of District 2 and Brookhaven feel about those issues, so that when we have the opportunity to put that into place through the comprehensive plan, we take those issues into account and put them into effect. Last thing I'd like to address is the TAD. I'm not in favor of the TAD. It's basically taking out debt for something I think will probably be developed anyway. I think once it's off the ballot, a lot of these people will develop there if it's really as financially attractive as it's purported to be. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. The election is November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. I wanted to also recognize State Rep Scott Holcomb has joined us. Thank you so much. I didn't want you to think you could sneak in and not get recognized. Let's hear for the candidates. I think that was a really nice overview of what their positions are. Very quickly, I'm going to remind you of the questions that are posted on the Brookhaven Post, okay? Because some of the questions that I have here are redundant, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I think this is going to actually allow us to be able to take some questions randomly from audience members, which I think that the candidates would all be in favor for, if we go off of what we kind of talked about a little bit. Okay, why are you running for office? I think that became abundantly clear, right? We got that one. What do you see as the two biggest challenges and opportunities for District 2? All right, that is posted on the Post. Parks, planning, zoning, and police. There were three primary reasons for creating this city. How are we doing on parks, planning, zoning, and police? All of this is on the Post, okay? So, and I think a lot of people addressed that. Do you support continuing the litigation with the Pink Pony, or should the city settle? We've already covered that. That's on the Post. We don't going to ask that question tonight. Do you support granting redevelopment powers to the city of Brookhaven? They all are in agreement there. All right, so it's interesting if you will go there and educate yourselves on the candidates. They are extremely similar in a lot of the positions, okay? So what I was going to ask these guys to do was to give us a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, specifically for District 2, what's going to happen to us. I think they kind of covered that a little bit. One of the things that's completely, by far, the most popular argument that you all have is traffic in Brookhaven. All the redevelopment, all the new restaurants, all the new apartment buildings, the traffic on the major thoroughfares that was fine a few years ago is now becoming a little bit of a challenge for the residents. And it's not the residents that are causing it. So, so the questions are, you know, things, this one's probably the best word. What specific items do you believe could be implemented by the Department of Community Development to prevent the various zoning problems the city has experienced since its incorporation? So what are those problems? Traffic, things like that. So I think what we should do is we'll ask all the candidates to respond to what seems to be the most popular unasked question is, how are we going to responsibly handle the development of our city? Is that a fair question? Okay. Let's start on this end with Mr. Barry. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So, smart growth would be the best way to manage the development of the city. What that smart growth is dependent on what the people want it to be. I read the definition of what smart growth was on Wikipedia. It may not be the most accurate, but it kind of, I think, gets to the gist of, all right, people are going to move here, development is going to occur, so let's do it in a smart and intelligent way. So that would be, you know, creating alternate methods of transportation, bus services, bike paths, walking paths. As far as zoning, you can zone, I guess, certain areas as multifamily, just to keep it closer to, I guess, other areas that are kind of urban already to begin with, so that there would be less need to get into a car. It's the actual specifics of how to do that, I guess, need to be kind of hammered out. But for as far as an overarching concept, it's you know, how can we develop this in the smartest possible way? And that's the question for us to answer.
All right. You know, I think it's a extremely important question. We need to enforce the ordinances that we have on the books right now. We need to enforce them in a consistent manner, which hasn't happened to date yet. We also need to strengthen our ordinances. You know, a great example would be the fact that when you go in to apply for a building permit, you have to submit a site plan showing where the house is going on the lot, how many trees you're taking down, what your impervious coverage is going to be on that. You get your permit, you build your house, you go in, you get your CO, and then you're done. At no point in time do you ever have to produce another survey, which is called an as-built, showing that you built what you said you were going to do. Well, that's a major flaw that we have in our community development department now. The comment by community development so far has been, at some point we've got to trust that builders are going to do what they say they're going to do. I don't believe that. You need to verify that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. This was a simple step that DeKalb had in the equation that Brookhaven has admitted. You know, these are items that need to be enforced. You know, we need to take further steps to strengthen our tree ordinance. Beyond, you know, I feel like we've gotten a good start with what has started, but it needs to be expanded more. And there also needs to be some room for variances in that regard for homeowners that, you know, that have trees that may not be diseased and dying, but they're safety issues. You know, there's a lot of smart things that we can do in order to preserve the character of our neighborhoods, which will also control a lot of the traffic issues we have. One thing that no one else has touched on is we're about to see the most significant development in the city of Brookhaven at the MARTA station that will probably occur in the next 25 to 50 years. If we don't have a vision that we put in place in order to mandate that development the way that it needs to be handled in the proper fashion, then we're all going to suffer from that for a long time. Right now, the city council is being reactive to what MARTA is bringing to them. They're saying, you know, well, bring us some proposals and we'll tell you what we like and what we don't like. We need to go to MARTA and tell them what we want to see. The residents need to have a voice in what they want to see. I doubt it's apartments, but if it is, you know, we need to tell them that. You know, it needs to be residential, it needs to be retail, it needs to be office. You know, we've got to go to MARTA with what we want to see done on that property, because that will be the most significant development in our city for quite some time. And unless you have that experience in planning and zoning and know how to plan for those situations, and unless you have a working relationship with our current government at DeKalb County, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. Thank you.
Well, I actually concur with both of my opponents here. One of the things that we need to look at is the way, now this was a DeKalb County issue, it wasn't a city of Brookhaven issue, but we allowed these new apartments to be developed on Dresden, that's fine. We brought new residents, new income people to the city. However, there was no infrastructure study done. The infrastructure is non-existent. What we have on Dresden is a complete nightmare. Dresden should be 4 lanes right now. We need at least a turn lane, and what we have on the north side of the city, on the north side of the street, is a strip of parkland. We're certainly not going to use that to widen the street. On the south side of the street, the setback's 10 feet. Where are we going to create this turn lane for the traffic nightmare getting in and out of these apartments and synchronize those traffic lights? What we also have here is this beautiful development that's coming our way from MARTA. I'm in favor of a couple of those proposals, and there's some exciting things there. However, before we even consider this, we have to look at the ordinances, and we have to put the infrastructure study. We have to put that into play. The infrastructure needs to be completed before we start this development. What's going to happen to Apple Valley? It's no longer going to be a quiet little cut through. It's going to become a major thoroughfare competing with traffic on Peachtree. And we already have a big headache on Dresden. It's only going to compound that headache if we don't have proper infrastructure set up. So going forward, I think that when we have these massive developments, we need to look at the impact on the community. How are we going to mitigate these before a problem happens like we have on Dresden? So, thank you.
I really love where I live. One of the reasons I lived here is I can take Claremont down to downtown, get to a Hawks game by 7:30 if I leave at 7, and be back in time for bed at 10 o'clock. Let's be honest. DeKalb County gave us a nice little gift before we became a city, and they built 4-story apartments right on Dresden. We can't fix that. We just can't. I mean, I drive down the street every other day and it looks like, oh, could we do some? No, we just can't. We can talk about zoning, we can talk about planning, but aside from eminent domain and tearing down those buildings, you can't do it. What we can do is mitigate some of the damage. I've walked up and down Thompson, North Thompson, Ashford, Reading. We got to mitigate the damage that's been done with all the cut-throughs and the speeding and the serious public safety issue there. Some say speed bumps. I've heard mixed results about those. Some say they work. Some are very annoyed that they run over them and make a lot of noise. It just annoys the heck out of them. And it costs money. And people that are very low income in those neighborhoods, whether they voted for it or not, have to pay for them. Some people, I think one option is radar signs. They have been shown to work. That's just mitigation. One other way that we can improve traffic is to do what the Parks Master Plan said, which is create a network of neighborhood parks with walkable, bike-rideable greenways, connecting them. We can engage non-governmental organizations. We can look for government grants. We can take financing from the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority so that more people stay off the road so we have less traffic. That's one issue. I've seen transit developments that can work. In fact, I actually attended the meeting at the Council for Quality Growth where Bates Madison was the speaker. And he was talking about the plans for it. I think they were actually talking about fewer hotel spaces and larger condos. And that can work, and has worked in places like DC. Knowing Atlanta, I don't think it will. And I think the only way for us to stop the development, or not stop development, I want to stop development, to slow down the development, is for those of us that care, get more people to care, and have a truly representative democracy, where we go to the city and let our voice be heard. So just as we practice activism for Soccer Fest, I want to reach out to the community. I plan on having open houses once a month in my home, even after the election if I'm elected, and really talk and convince people of the action that we need to take as a community to combat these issues. And also we can work within the purview of the Brookhaven overlay, which has certain requirements for that area. For instance, it has to be at least two-story. I understand that the Little White Restaurant on the corner of Caldwell, in order to renovate, had to build this two-story building. But at the same time, within the overlay, you can put a four-story apartment. Well, I think we need to sit down as a community and start a conversation with the city and say, hey, maybe instead of a four-story apartment, we should put a two-story retail space. And behind that, put an unobtrusive parking space, kind of like the one behind Verde. And then behind that, maybe put some townhouses so there's a natural progression from retail, which doesn't add to the traffic during rush hour, which brings more people in during the day, and have a natural progression from that to single-family homes. Because quite frankly, the parking is a mess over there. And I understand there's a meeting on Sunday at 4:30 at one of the homes at the corner of Green Meadows and Wilford, where they are talking about a residence parking permit program, where basically only residents can park there. So there are a lot of issues to talk about, but the main issue is the fact that me, as one city councilman, I can't do a whole lot. What I need is for you to join me and tell the city we need to grow smart, we need to grow well, and we need to have a livable community, and so that we can be a true gem throughout the whole Atlanta area and the nation, and to where we can be proud to call it home. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Let's hear it for all of our candidates. I think that those were excellent responses. And I don't know about you, but it seems like they're kind of all on the same page there as well. So I find that to be very interesting. So when Trey and I were organizing this, we wanted to stress how important it was that we maintain as much neutrality as possible and fairness as possible. So that's why I'm addressing all of the candidates with the same questions. That's why all of the candidates have the same amount of time to answer the questions, okay? So there are a few questions that were submitted that were specific to some candidates. In order to maintain that neutrality and fairness, I'm not going to ask those questions, okay? So if you submitted them and you have a huge problem with what I'm doing, I'm happy to speak with you afterwards. But these guys have been doing an awesome job on managing time. So instead of me asking them another question and having them all concur, I'm going to invite those of you that feel like they submitted a question that hadn't been addressed, that hadn't been answered, to approach or at least raise their hand, and I'll be happy to give you a few minutes and you can ask these questions. But please address everyone so they all have a chance to ask the same question. Mr. Mayor had a question. Come on. You've got 1 minute. Ronnie Mayer.
Ronnie Mayer, probably the oldest neighborhood activist here. There's a few old geezers I see around here. But I was the first neighborhood activist. I had a Mr. Hood that lives off Craven Ridge. I got some great lessons from him years ago. We have spent, Jim Meyer and I, have spent many a night at 1 o'clock in the morning at Ashford Park out there with a garden hose watering trees. And all of y'all are great guys. Every one of y'all are great guys. And I appreciate you wanting to run. But when this election's over, the three who lose, I want you involved in our neighborhood. I've been doing parks. I've been over there at the Georgian Hills Park using money out of my pocket, my wife's pocket, to do the creek beds and clean out. We've had the Boy Scouts over there. You know, I lived here before it was cool to live in Brookhaven. I built the first large house on Reading Road before it was cool to have a large house. My 401k plan is Brookhaven. So when I have one of y'all down there at City Hall, and I'm gonna say this very tactfully, I've got 6 or 8 people down there now that's like a deer in the headlights. They don't know what they're doing. I need somebody that can hit the door running. And if you don't have experience, and if you lose, please stay around. Belong to the neighborhood association. Go to DeKalb County meetings. I was appalled last night. The CEO of DeKalb County was here at our city hall. 5 people came, and I was one of them from Brookhaven. 5 people. The CEO of DeKalb County. And just because we have a new city of Brookhaven, do not think that we don't really need them. We need them for a lot. So we need somebody that can hit the door running with experience of who you know, how to get things done. And I just want y'all to do some real soul searching that when you get elected for this job, it's not just a 6-hour a day job. You will get phone calls at 8 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. And when I call you or one of your constituents, they say, well, my wife's got plans for us tonight. You put your pants on and you go with it.
Ronnie, I think we got 12 questions from you there. How many questions was that? Is anyone keeping count? But I think the first thing he asked, 3, the first thing he asked I think was awesome. What if you lose? What if you lose and you don't win this election? What are you going to do about Brookhaven? I think that's fair.
I'm not going to do anything different than I've been doing, for the past 10 or 15 years. I've always been involved in the community. I'm going to stay involved in the community. I still think I'm the best option we have based on my history and experience and community involvement, but it's not going to change what I do.
Obviously, I have a vested interest in this city as a small business owner. I've been active in some of the community events, and I continue to plan on being active. Even if I lose, there's a lot to be done here. There's a lot of people that need help. And we'll be out there. I'll be there day and night for you. If you call at 9 o'clock, Ronnie, I'll come a-running. All right. I'll change my number, too. All right.
One of my passions is livability. Back in 2007, I kind of bought at the peak, so I had always, when my loan officer asked me about the kind of loan I wanted and how long I was going to live there, I basically told her, well, go ahead and give me a 30-year fix. I plan on dying in my house. I grew up in Decatur. I spent some time in Midtown. One of the reasons why houses same houses that go for $500-600 here go for $800,000 in Decatur is because it's walkable, it's livable, they have paths that are interconnected, and it's just a great place to live with a great tree canopy where you live in an urban forest. One of my passions that I've developed recently is that livable, walkable neighborhood. I've already been in touch with Ed McBrayer from the Path Foundation. I've already been in touch with Tom Hogan. He has some great ideas about paths to connect Keswick Park, which is to Blackburn Park, which is already connected to Murphy Cannon Park. Go through around Donaldson, possibly. Under that tunnel that was already built with input from neighbors in Ashford Park. Mike Lennon was there, who gave input, and that was a result of that. And then connect up to and try to save this green space over here on by PDK. Have a passive recreation area there. Connect that up through Georgian Hills Park. Somehow go along Claremont. And I'm still doing the research. I've engaged civil engineers that are hydrologists. I've engaged GIS people already. And actually, even if I lose, I look forward to continuing to engage those people and be a resource to the city so that we can have a walkable, livable neighborhood. And I think that will be, I just have this vision of having a kid that will play soccer at Blackburn Park. We'll ride our bike there. We'll ride our bike home. And then afterwards, we ride our bike to Briarwood Park, the great pool there, and just have a great life like that. And that's my vision. Whether I'm elected to city council or not, I think that is the vision that we all should share. Thank you.
John. Charlie?
Well, I happen to be in the unique position where I know every single person in DeKalb County, and everybody in Brookhaven because I know Ronnie Mayer. And I can get to anybody who I need to through Ronnie. He's a good guy, and he really cares, as you can see. But you know, if I were to lose this, I would get involved, I think, first with schools, because I have a young son. He's one in a month, so I'd probably start there because I know he's going to get right here in less than 5 years. So that's probably where I put all of my effort at the beginning. Trey does a good job of covering the work days at the various parks. There's plenty of opportunity to get involved with that, and that's something that I could do also. And also, the smart growth concept is I really like it. And I'd probably try to hang out with the zoning board to try to learn a little more about what they're doing in that if I lost, and be an advocate for that smart growth concept. I like that. So that's just kind of like something that interests me, that I'd probably spend more time doing as well. But I don't want to lose. I want to win, and I want to be there for when Ronnie calls me at 5 a.m. I can just help him in any way he can, and everybody else. But yeah, I'm interested. I want to win. The vote is November 4th. I'd appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Ronnie. There's no doubt that you are a leader of this community. I saw a question, Mr. Kim Gertcha, if you don't mind. You going to come up to the mic, if I may? If I may? Yeah, I want the microphone. He's worse than I am.
Sorry. Hi, Kim Gertcha, a property owner here in District 2 and in District 4. And I have a question for all the candidates here around governance. So we're a new city. We have a city council that needs another city councilor. That's why we're all here. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is our structure and the dynamics of the leadership at the city. So thank you all for standing up. It's a critical thing you're doing. I appreciate everybody that's running and here tonight as candidates. And I do want to say thanks to Jim for representing District 2. Sir, thank you for your service. The question is this. Yes. The question is this. We have a strong city manager form of government. Do you think that's the right model for our new city? And if not, why? And if so, why? Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. You're next, okay?
Well, it's a full-time job. I don't think the representation should come from the people in the city, regular people, whether they be software engineers like me, or business owners, or home builders. So I think it's very important for the city council to be made up of people that are committed to the community, that are not necessarily full-time government employees, so that we can be more in touch. So as far as the city manager is concerned, I do think that it can be a very efficient system, but it does open itself to abuse. I was talking to a person over on Nesbitt who basically said, "Well, we need to fire her." And I said, "Well, hold off here. Let's talk about this for a second. Why do you think?" And I said, "Well, because she gets paid too much." And I said, "Well, she gets paid more than I do. I guess she actually." I don't know how she gets paid that much money. I know that she gets paid a lot more. So what I'm saying about the city manager system is that I think it is a good structure. You have to have someone that's an executive, that it will make executive decisions for the city and make things happen, like she did for Soccerfest. But at the same time, we had to do a better job of overseeing the potential issues and the outside influences. And that is one of the responsibilities of a city councilman who is independent and can oversee these things and avoid the abuses. Thank you.
I disagree with the current style of city management that we're following. I believe that we need to have some fresh blood in here, and that's what we're all here for, to be a new, fresh face on the council, to listen to the people, be the people's voice. We'll come back real quickly to this referendum. I've talked to probably several hundred Brookhavenites, not just from District 2, but from all over. They weren't aware of this referendum until it showed up in the paper, and clearly nobody was in favor of it. So I think what we need to do is get these council people to be the representatives that they want, that you want us to be. We'll listen to you. I think with one clear executive, the mayor, he can make these decisions. I don't think we need the city manager with a lot of outside influences, running our city this way. It's not the way we need to run Brookhaven. We are a young city. We are a growing city. We have growing pains. We need to have the people's input from your ideas. Come to us. I'm accessible. You can walk into my restaurant any day and get me. You've got an issue, I'll bring it to the city. I don't think we need a city manager, quite frankly. Thank you.
Well, I think we finally found a question that we have some disagreement among the candidates on, which is great. I don't know that we have a strong city manager form of government. I think that we have a strong city manager. The issue that we have is we need a stronger city council. We need a city council that's going to listen to all of their residents, listen to the will of the people, and then tell the city manager how they want the city operated. It is the city manager's job to operate our city. It is an essential position that we cannot get rid of. But what we do need is we need a strong council that, instead of taking staff recommendation on everything that comes before them, listens to the residents more than the staff recommendation, and that way the residents are going to build Brookhaven into what we all want it to be. We don't need the tail wagging the dog. We need to have a strong council who's going to set the right course for the city based on what the residents' input is.
Tim took my answer. Yeah, I mean, I see it similarly. I thought the mayor was supposed to be the city manager in the olden days of cities, but I think it's you need a city manager in place. I think that the mayor and the council are the check and balance to keep them keep that control there, and they take their orders from the people. So that's the kind of I guess maybe that's what Mr. Mayor's talking about maybe the current council, in his estimation, not knowing what they're doing. I guess there needs to be some pushback with the current manager, just to make sure that there is a check and balance system there, so that the people feel that there's a check and balance system there, and you don't have many questions about, are we a manager-run city? Because if those questions are being asked, maybe the people don't feel like there's a check and balance. So I vote pushback. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. You, sir. And you're next, I promise. Falcons kick off here in 1 minute. Ronnie's out the door.
Hello, my name is Michael Schwartz. I'm protecting the southern flank of Drew Valley, so if you're ever in the neighborhood, you got to deal with me. Just kidding, just kidding. But anyway, my question is, it complements what this gentleman was brought up, is y'all are running for a city council, and there are other council persons on that quorum, in essence. I'm curious about your philosophies on how you'll interact, negotiate, deal with, communicate with the other city council members.
It's an excellent question. Don't forget, you're going to have to be working with these guys, these people. Sorry.
These fine, honorable people. I think the key there would be just to listen to the points of views of the representatives. They all represent their district. They're voicing the concerns of the people. They're to be in theory, they are supposed to be the voice of the people of their district. So that is a perspective that needs to be considered and respected. But before coming to a decision, you need to at least be open enough to listen to all perspectives, listen to their advocate, and then kind of find the bridges of understanding rather than focus on any kind of the problems that will become a roadblock. Focus on those bridges of understanding. Try to expand on that and see really where the decision needs to be made. And that's where you put the pin. I think that's where the decision needs to be made. Yeah.
Thanks.
I experienced a lot of this on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I served as the chairman of the Zoning Board since the city's inception. I had to work with the other board members there to come up with a decision on how to resolve cases. It's about compromise. You can't take a hard, fast, draw a line in the sand and say, this can't be done. Our job as council people will be to advocate for our residents. And drawing a hard line in the sand and not working with the other council members is not in the best interest of our residents. We've got to be willing to work with the mayor and the council to achieve the goals that our district wants to see achieved. I have a working relationship with the mayor and the 3 current council members. I don't go to cookouts at their house. Our kids don't play together, but I have a good working relationship with them. I know them. I can work with them to achieve the goals that we need to achieve for District 2.
Once again, I concur. I do have a good relationship as well with Jay Max and Joe and Bates. I think that we can always find a middle ground here. I'm not coming into this to be elected to be adversarial or confrontational. I am coming in to represent you, the people, and let your voices be heard. There are other councilmen, and their jobs is the same thing, just to voice the opinion of their constituents. I think that all Brookhavenites are not going to be thinking the same all the time, but I think there's going to be a fair amount of consensus. And digging down and finding that consensus and striking that compromise and negotiating on behalf of you folks will work for everybody. Again, I know the other council people. I think they're fantastic, and I know that I can get along with all of them. Thank you.
One of the things in my career is every 5 years I have to remake myself. I did consulting, I did integration, now I'm doing software development at a very small company. I've already started to work with Bates. I met with them, had breakfast. We talked about the charter school. After it was rejected by the State Charter Commission, I reached out to a good friend of mine who was actually one of the founders of the first charter school in Atlanta, and I asked her to critique the presentation, and I sent Bates an email with all her answers so that the city council could be better prepared for next year. I also joined Bates at the meeting of this Council for Quality Growth, and we had talked a lot about the various opportunities that are coming down the road for the city of Brookhaven and for Atlanta overall. I was over at the Chamber of Commerce meeting with Tom Hogan and Mr. Muck this morning just to meet other civic leaders around in the area, and I actually have a breakfast scheduled with Jeff Rader next week. Aside from that, there are 2 experiences that I would like to describe. I may not have experience in elective politics, but I do have experience in politics. I've done consulting engagements where we had to very quickly identify influencers and be ready with an assessment that is politically correct, yet effective for the customer. I've also worked in software environments where a lot of people disagree on on the approach to take on a software project. At the end of the day, you have to put out a product, even if you disagree on how to take that approach. So in a development shop, we have a product. In a city council, you have to compromise and put out ordinances and set a direction for the city as a team, and I have that experience. Thank you.
Gentlemen, Falcons are already up 7-0. Yes.
Go Falcon. My name is Matt Bell. I live here over on Skyline Drive, and I have a couple kids going here to Ashford Park. My question is around, I was kind of surprised recently to hear how much time was being spent on the Brookhaven Innovation Academy by our city council. I know schools wasn't part of our original charter for a city, and so it was surprising to me that they were working on it at all, and then how much had already gone into it. I was wondering if you guys could give your opinions on the Innovation Academy and the types of work that they're doing with that school versus supporting our existing schools.
I have mixed feelings about the Brookhaven Innovation Academy. I met with Dr. McMillan a few weeks ago, and she stressed that we should put more support into our public schools as opposed to starting another school. I also met with Tom Hogan, and he voiced another concern that a lot of the money and corporate sponsorships and activities in the community could be diverted away from Ashford Park Elementary towards the Brookhaven Innovation Academy. At the same time, look outside, there are trailers. And if with more development, we're going to have overcrowding. So if there's another school open, it could alleviate some of the crowding and make the situation better. So I'm definitely paying very close attention to this. I have not made up my mind clearly on this issue, but it is definitely something that if we're going to do, we need to do it right. And that is the reason for my involvement with Bates. And that is my opinion on that. Thank you.
I'm not certain that we need the Innovation Academy at this point, but I am certain that we need to do some expansion on this school. I don't want to see any other programs come by that could potentially funnel money away from Ashford Park Elementary School. As John points out, we've got overcrowding, we've got students out in trailers here. I mean, we could expand this school, we could find another piece of property, build another public school there. We can float a bond for that. Probably a nice municipal bond, tax-free muni bonds. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think we need to go with the Innovation Academy at this point. Some point maybe, but right now, no.
I've got a real simple opinion on this. It's the same way I look at redevelopment powers. We've got too much mission creep going on right now. We have not perfected the promises that were initially made to the citizens at the time of incorporation. We've got a great police presence. We've finally taken ownership of our parks. We need to start seeing improvements on them, and we need a lot of improvement in our planning and zoning. And until we get those things perfected, we don't need to be branching out into further endeavors. Would I like to see a charter school at some point in time? Possibly. Would I like to see a combination Brookhaven, Chamblee, Dunwoody school system at some point in time? Absolutely. I think that would be great. I disagree with what John said earlier about why the home prices in Decatur are higher than they are in Brookhaven. I think that the majority of that price increase is due to the Decatur school system. I don't think it's due to the walkability. I'm not downplaying walkability, but I think the majority of that price increase is due to the school system. The city has got to perfect the initial promises made in the referendum before they start branching out into further endeavors.
I kind of see it same way. It's more of a be brilliant at the basics type of issue. Parks, police, planning and zoning, public works. I think eventually the idea of a charter school is not a bad idea. I think it's something that will, probably be a benefit in the future. But first order of business, fantastic at the fundamentals, brilliant at the basics. Stick to that. And while this is, the city may not have a direct impact on Ashford Park Elementary, that doesn't mean we can't do, have an indirect impact and try to make sure that we're, getting every dime from the state and county governments to Ashford Park. I know the PTA put on the Brookhaven Bolt that raised $40,000 for the school. And I know the city can host events similar to that will, that can be directed at raising funds for the school. And I think that's something that, if we want to get into schools, maybe that's the first thing, charter schools, second thing. Thanks.
We have a question over here.
Thank you. I would like to hear from each one of you about prior experiences in your personal life that would take the amount of time away from your family and your personal life that would give you experience moving forward with this endeavor. It's a tremendous amount of time commitment. You would be projected in the public eye. I'd like to hear a little bit from each of you of the type of experiences you've had in the past that would accommodate that.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell.
From what I hear, it's a pretty intense job. A lot of time needs to go into it. You got to be available to everybody pretty much all the time. My first 2 years out of law school, I spent a lot of time doing insurance defense litigation, trying cases all over the state of Georgia. state and superior court, and just trying to manage a large caseload, put together cases, put together trials, try cases in front of juries and judges. That's why I left the insurance defense world and moved over to the plaintiff side. I can help people, and the hours are much better. Still intense, but better. So I think there's a void to be filled, and I can do that with city council.
Thank you. My prior experiences that I've had that I think get me ready for this position is the fact that I was a board member for Citizens for North DeKalb and volunteered for Brookhaven, yes. I've been working on making Brookhaven a city for a long time. Once we were incorporated, I've served as the chairman of the ZBA since its inception until I resigned to seek this office. The best asset that I have is the fact that I have an amazing wife who takes care of my 3 children, and she knows how much community involvement means to me, and it means the same amount to her, and she gives me that time that I need to attend the meetings that I do. I've been to countless city council meetings, every ZBA meeting that we had since inception. I feel as though I'm uniquely qualified because I've been doing this already for quite some time. I've been at the meetings, I've put the time in, and I'm ready to serve.
Well, in my previous life, I was an extensive traveler. I traveled border to border, coast to coast, and had to go to the United Kingdom once a quarter. Did that for 5 years. So I spent a lot of time on the road. I retired. Now I opened this restaurant. I spend a lot of time at the restaurant. I'm in there probably 12 hours a day. I know what it takes to run a startup, and the city of Brookhaven is a startup. I think it would be a respite to me if I were elected, give me an opportunity to get outside of the restaurant and get over to City Hall for a different look at things. But I'm prepared for this. I have the time. I'm fairly flexible. So vote for me.
I too also used to travel a lot for consulting. We would fly out Sunday evenings or Monday mornings, come back Fridays, and I had a very I lived with my parents, and my mom did my laundry for me, which was great. And now my wife is very supportive when I was traveling a lot. But what it comes down to is just time management. And as they say in professional sports, clearing cap space. When I looked at running for city council and the time that it would require, I went ahead and I had gotten my soccer club, the 3-team club, to the point where I could hand things off to my assistant managers because it used to take 15, 20 hours a week getting all that settled. I've talked to my boss at work, and I've cut my hours back, way back from to 40 hours a week. And I've, with our fostering of dogs, we're taking fewer hard cases, although we may have to pick that back up once the election is over. We had a couple of ringworm puppies a few months ago, and that was challenging. So I've learned to balance my life, whether it be consulting or working on projects where we're working 14 hours a day on the BioSense project with the CDC. And I'm used to taking phone calls from irate people, whether it be soccer players that are very angry with me about my time, or a production support call because the server crashed at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. So it's nothing new to me. Thank you.
You guys are doing a great job on time management. It's quarter of. There's no change in the score. We have a question right here in the middle, and I'm working my way over there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Stringer, and I was going to ask the same question you asked, but I'll put a little twist on it, and actually I've got a second question, if I'm allowed, if we have time. Anyway, so the question is, do you have the time to do this given your full lives already? And so I think one way of saying that or telling whether you have the time to do it is, I've been to a lot of the meetings particularly on the parks because I really care about the parks. I haven't been to many of the other ones. But I don't recognize your faces, which doesn't mean you weren't there. It just means I don't recognize your faces. So in terms of your time allocation coming into your running for councilman, And actually, Mr. Nama, you're excused from this question because we know you're spending a lot of time on the city already. But have you been going to these meetings?
Short answer, no.
Okay. Anybody else?
I haven't been going to the meetings. I've made a few, but I have been watching a lot of them on video.
Okay.
I saw you at the District 3 Parks meeting where Bates was the moderator and J-Mac was there.
Oh,
I was
okay.
there too.
Good.
But I try to make them when I can. Went to got the beginning of the tree ordinance meeting. Had to step out, but I'm making it a priority.
Okay. I really love the meetings. I really admire the city for having them. But the second question that I had, am I allowed? I'm sorry. Great, thank you. One thing that came up in all the planning is that we have the northern part of Brookhaven well represented here, but the southern part is where we have a high Hispanic population, lots and lots of apartments, no parks, and nobody in this audience who represents them. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on the southern part of the city, and do any of you speak Spanish?
I speak construction Spanish, which is completely useless if elected as city council. We need more parks throughout the city, but District 4 especially needs parks. We need to find the way to acquire more parklands, be it through green space acquisition, and created some passive parks. They're working a lot on the North Fork Trail. The parks have to be a priority of our city. Right now, the most telling thing that I saw in the Parks Master Report was that 77% of our residents are using parks in neighboring cities because ours aren't adequate, especially in District 4 by virtue of the fact there's not any. There's 4 different districts, there's 4 different sets of residents, but we all live within a few miles of each other. That's the beauty of the local control of our parks and everything. We all have use of the same parks, but we've got to start improving on what we have and acquiring more so that we can get up to the same level of some of these parks that 77% of our residents are traveling to use on a weekly basis.
I do not speak Spanish. I speak a little French, not knowing Spanish. We are working on the North Fork connector that runs through a good part of District 4 over there. I do believe that we need to acquire some more green spaces and create parks. We need more representation for the Latin community here, because when we became a city, I've heard that it's as high as 21% of the Brookhaven population is Latino. So my bad, I don't speak Spanish, but I will represent the people that's at District 4. I would get on board with them and try to create some more parks for the children and just a better quality of life for all of Brookhaven.
My wife speaks Spanish. She also speaks 4 other languages. I speak Korean, but obviously most of the Koreans are up in Duluth, which does me no good whatsoever. As you know, I also speak a little French, and at one point in my life I spoke some German, although I forgot it because it was 20 years ago. But as far as the community, Betsy Eggers and I actually have a meeting. We're trying to schedule a meeting to go over the concept of the Brookhaven Beltline. So I've already engaged her to connect the North Fork, obviously, up through Century Center and somehow make it up Claremont around that area through the Briarwood area, not going through the creek barriers. That's going to cost us $1 million in impact fees. Possibly, I've had plans submitted for a Claremont trail with the airport ring. So that is definitely a huge issue on my mind. As far as our Latino community, I was actually at the city council meeting where J-Max had a commendation for the police officers that reacted so quickly in helping the immigrants that were there. And as an immigrant myself, who at one point in my life, I probably don't want to say this in front of my parents, lived in conditions like that. I'm definitely very concerned. And I reached out to Ted Terry, who's the mayor of Clarkston, who did a lot of work, and I'm still researching this issue. I'm not ready to propose anything, where he went in and tied business licenses for these apartments that are actually, let's be honest, they're slums. And they are abusing the people there, the people that can't speak up for themselves. To go in and legally tie, possibilities are, obviously fines and inspections, but just improving the livability for those people. They're my people. I was an immigrant just like them, and I recently became a citizen back in 1997. So is that something that that actually does deeply concern me? Thank you.
I guess most specifically for District 4 regarding parks would be the North Fork coming down into District 4, kind of like a trail. I know Betsy was really pushing that in the District 3 meeting with Bates. She was very interested in that. As far as like most specific answer to your question, it would be that. But I do think we should probably focus on maintaining and beautifying, making better the parks that we do have now across all of Brookhaven, because we have those, and we should probably focus our energy on doing that first, that second, and I don't speak Spanish at all.
So with the remaining few minutes that we have here, I'm going to exercise my privilege and ask the final question. Brookhaven is not an island. Brookhaven happens to reside in DeKalb County, which I think all of us know has its own issues that will impact Brookhaven. We are still dependent on them for fire and rescue through intergovernmental agreements. We have, I believe, stormwater they handle for us. How are you going to work with DeKalb County? How are we going to help them help us?
First thing we do, educate them on what we need. They can't help us unless they know what we need. Partnering with them to make sure that any tax allocation that is due to us funneled our way in a timely manner, keeping those ties, those relations open, and those lines of communication open, so that when issues do arise, we can address them immediately. We can nip it in the bud rather than having it lament.
The fact of the matter is the majority of our tax bill still goes to DeKalb County. It goes to DeKalb County schools. DeKalb County still controls our fire and many other services that we have. I've worked with Commissioner Rader and Commissioner Gannon over the years. We also have got to strengthen the relationships that we have. Right now, everyone's still frustrated with a few parting gifts in the way of apartment complexes that we got on the way out, but we've got a really big relationship issue coming up with DeKalb County very shortly. The green space, the Ashford Park green space, is going to be a huge issue. Right now, DeKalb County holds the cards. We've got to have a strong relationship with them in order to preserve that green space and do what we can to mitigate any issues with that. We also need to have relationships with our neighboring cities. We need to have a better relationship with Chamblee. We need to have relationships with Dunwoody, City of Atlanta. We've got to work with all of these communities. We're not an island, and we don't need to act like we are. We need to do what's best for all of our residents, but that's only going to happen working in concert with the county and our neighbors.
Well, I believe that the elected mayor is the liaison to the county, and I think that we need to strengthen that relationship and have more open communication. As was mentioned, we have the fire and rescue, the water management, the animal control. All these things are still handled by the county, and at some point we as a community, we need to kind of incorporate and phase that into Brookhaven. But in the meantime, before we are all integrated, vertically integrated there, that we need to have a strong liaison between the county and our city government. I believe that we should have probably a team of people that go to, and it would be Brookhaven employees, go to county every day, sit there, talk to them, go to the meetings, and let them know what our concerns, our needs, and our issues are so that we're not left out in the cold because we're not part of unincorporated DeKalb anymore.
Well, Tim, you stole my answer. Like I said, I've already started reaching out to Commissioner Rader. That's great that Tim and Kathy Cannon and Jeff Rader already have a relationship. I think it's all about building relationships and establishing trust. Same when I lived in Dunwoody, there were the same issues when Dunwoody became a city. DeKalb was not particularly happy about it. I don't think the people in charge. But one thing we have to understand is DeKalb County isn't one entity. There's, as far as the PDK Green Space is concerned, there's the Airport Authority. There's the Green Space Program at DeKalb. There's the Parks and Recreation that handed the parks over to us. So there are a lot of complexities that, quite frankly, I'm just now starting to learn about. Tom Hogan has been instrumental in teaching me a lot of those issues and understanding how the government works. And once we understand how the government works, then we build relationships and go from there. And that is what I look forward to doing if I'm elected. Thank you.
Folks, I think everyone in the room wouldn't mind if we finish a little early. Let's hear it for our candidates. I think they did. I think they did a great job tonight, and I totally mixed up the program on you guys. So sorry, but you're going to have to be prepared for that kind of thing. That's going to happen all the time. It is 21-0 Falcons. Yeah. There is. We will have another debate. We will be entertaining more questions, hopefully in much greater detail from the audience sometime towards the end of October. As soon as we get the venue confirmed, we will communicate that information to all of you. Thanks everyone for coming out. I'm very grateful for your support here, and safe travels home. Good night. Thank you.